I was asked to make a video to further break down tradition-based communities versus solution-based communities, so that's what this is. And so let me get on with it. Okay, tradition-based communities versus solution-based communities. So I've come up with two symbols. The first is A, and that stands for tradition, and the second is B, and that stands for solution. Now, the first thing to discuss when talking about the differences between these two types of communities is perception factors. So, perception is an in real time lens. So, it's not retrospective, it's in real time. And so, the first thing we should discuss about perception factors is perception-based actions. Okay, A, so tradition, equals communities that focus on security at the expense of decay. What this means is that members of particular community experience in real-time security as a governing social measure, but the trade-off is that over time, with no new information, inform animation coming in, the status quo becomes rigid, the members become backward thinking in design of strategy, tactics, problem solving, etc. A flood could basically wipe them all out. They would have no conscious ability to adapt beyond the ruins of their civilization, meaning if such an event happened, the perception-based actions of A would result in extinction of A. If you focus all your efforts on your security over time, you will curse your following generations to require an intercommunal state of peace to operate in a coordinated manner. And because it is highly unlikely intercommunal peace will keep between individuals, the community of A will be destroyed or become enslaved, because if peace is kept difficult between same tribe individuals, it is kept maddeningly difficult between indifferent communities of different tribe individuals. B, so solution. These are communities that focus on adequacy at the expense of morale. What this means is that the members conceive across time with contingencies in place for potential destructions, deficits, etc. The trade-off, however, is that citizens of B are interpersonally barred more from supplementing behaviors, meaning men must meet this criterion and women must meet this criterion, and minor deviations from interpersonally declared criterion are treated interpersonally as sacrilege. Communities of B will survive, they will flourish, they will adapt, but their adaptations are not truly common. Furthermore, their adaptations can become intolerably directed by populist motivation that the adaptations absorb the people. Such was the case in Nazi Germany when Adolf Hitler captured a nation with a mere symbol to sport, namely the swastika. The perception-based actions of B own conclusions of stronghold tyranny and unsympathetic revolt. So, perception-based actions and anything that is perception-based, I think it's important to note it can be, the actions and the reactions can be influenced by across time perspectives, because you're going to have different perspectives in any given unit, right? Because there's more than just one person. But they are acted and reacted in the moment, in real time. So I just thought I would explain that. Okay, moving on to perception-based reactions. So A equals communities that are disgust sensitive, meaning the members of these communities are not used to what I term manual invention. In other words, getting your hands dirty to figure out machination. It is because of a lack of manual invention primed by the perception-based reactions of A that its people become crippled to dealing with foreign stimulations. Unlike the extreme exampled people of B, who welcome all newcomers to at first upset cut-off heads, the extreme exampled people of A are very very hesitant to welcome anybody new, and such extreme versions of this type of citizen will find it perfectly appropriate, if not optimal, to force any visitors to change from their familiar custom entirely, which implies both physical and metaphysical custom. This inability to relax the laws, so to speak, makes communities of A hotspots for alienated interpersonal outburst and/or conflict. Comparatively, B equals communities that are doubt-sensitive, meaning the members of these communities, although incredibly skilled with manual invention, are not at all stable with illustrations of unity, meaning such people can feel insulted to live with a social narrative of being individual character possessed by matter of state. It is because of their perception-based reactions that people of B have a tendency to spit on impersonal tradition, meaning they dislike establishment criterion of harmony and would prefer a natural harmony without any time and locality detached code of ethics establishing interaction requirements. People of B with the communal sensitivity to doubt foresee interaction requirements for inferiority mocking. Don't count on a community of B to not take offense to your being selective about who you interact/trade with. The more selective you are, the more you make yourself and your people by proxy enemy to B communities, which are the communities that matter of fact, so matter of perception, survive intercommunal confrontations at a much higher percentage. Okay, so we've talked about the perception factors. Now moving on to the reception factors. So this is looking through a retrospective lens. So we'll start with reception-based actions. So A, tradition, equals communities that react with comparison to a progression of integrated heredity, meaning these communities unconsciously indulge in 1. Nepotism, 2. Racialism by determination of ethnic divisions. 3. Normalization of court severity, which is the abuse of an authoritative peer body in doling out penalty. And 4. Normalization of parental tyranny, which is the deviant normalization of infant, child, and adolescent abuse. It is also important to note that parental tyranny invites spousal tyranny over time. To get an image of the reception-based actions of A communities, think about a crowd of witnesses at a hanging all gathered around as if they're about to watch the next Avengers film with smiling, dumb, hungry faces as the platform noose is looped around an 8-year-old's neck. B solution equals communities that react with compensation to a progression of unequaled supremacy, meaning the communities of B unconsciously expand their methodology to incorporate the methods of their interlopers, which results in people of B communities reacting to measurement of output. Think of it like you kick citizen of B on their leg with your bare foot to find citizen of B later punting your gut with a steel-toed boot. Every strange action is met and exceeded by B communities, which makes them excellent at surviving changing conditions. But the drawback is B communities run the risk of losing all pragmatic social prejudice, allowing rapists, if their public face is in order, to walk untarred beside their victims, which, if persisting over time, invites violent revolution, as it is interpersonally untenable not to have mandate degrade the guilty of both public and private affair equally. So now moving on to reception-based reactions. A equals communities that input shame after intercommunal confrontation. The whole outfit of Community A is dressed in intercommunal inadequacy after every intercommunal conflict because at the individual level, the reception-based reaction qualifies guilt, but because at that level it does so in expansion of the social conscience, so the conscious sentience appropriating all members of the community at the collective level, the organized mirroring of micro-guilt produces a disorganized macro-shame, meaning the citizen of A is fed the communal messages they haven't done enough, they are not enough, etc. These communal messages have their pros and cons, of which the pros are the people develop a like-minded spirit for achievement, as well as a soul for legacy, but the cons are the people regress to emotional infancy in the face of criticism and stall the progress of their own responsibility at the individual level. B equals communities that input guilt after intercommunal confrontation. As the people of B communities perceive their own inadequacy, they receive insecurity in mass, meaning at the collective level. People of B are forced to reconcile they did what they did to survive, and this pragmatic unveiling is the social messaging that circulates B communities. This has its pros and cons, of which the pros are familial relations are tougher in times of war and hardship, but the cons are addictions are rampant, and alcoholism is popularized, and gangs form out of what should be fleeting trends as the usually male youth of B communities attempt to nullify the social messaging saying they are inherently sinful, evil, etc. by rallying forces and proving they will take care of the communal problems, but in doing so they become problem for the community themselves. Okay, so now it's time to talk about byproducts of these different types of communities. Okay, so first thing to discuss is partnership byproducts. So tradition-based communities, they produce spousal abuse. That's a partnership byproduct of tradition-based communities. Whereas solution-based communities, they produce spousal neglect. Familial byproducts, tradition-based communities, they produce abusive households, whereas solution-based communities, they produce absent homes. So if you think about the difference between a household and a home, a household is it's in the tangible, right? Whereas a home is an abstract concept. A home has to do with the atmosphere of the mood, so to speak, rather than the technical atmosphere. And so with B communities, so solution-based communities, oftentimes there's a lack of home. Whereas with A communities, tradition-based communities, there is that the home is there, right? But the household is abusive. So there's a trade-off. Anyway, moving on. Communal byproducts. So tradition-based communities produce blind justice. So this really is what it means. I mean, if you've seen Lady Justice with the blindfold on and the scales, and blind justice is basically you're not allowing further analysis to take place to make judgments on, but instead you are referring constantly to a code or a book or some other resource to tell you what is just and what is unjust, rather than using your eyes and ears, and you get my point. Okay, and solution-based communities produce anarchy. So if you see what's happening in some parts of the world right now, there's riots going on, which is a form. It's a fashion, I should say, of anarchy, and so usually ghettos fall into the category of solution-based communities, which is why they produce a lot of innovation. I mean, if you think about cultural innovation, and you link it to what's going on with Black people in America, a lot of the cultural innovation, they are accomplishing that, and that's through being solution-based. But one of the downsides to being solution-based in your communities is that you run the risk of producing anarchy. Anyway, okay, moving on to national relations. And so I'm going to give you 3 concentrations that I want you to think about. Concentration number 1, the strain dynamics would take on a larger social organism. Concentration number 2, the longevity of relation to a larger social organism. And concentration number 3, the durability of individual sanity over time under control of A community or B community. And so why this is called national relations is because we exist in these nations, right? These large organisms of collective, right? And so those are 3 concentrations I want you to think about, and you know, and I want you to factor in while you examine your own interpersonal behavior and your own sense of community, etc. Anyway, yeah. Have a good day. Peace, meow.